The Celtics have stayed alive in Game 4, but can they continue to make things interesting tonight? Back at home, Game 5, we're going to have to see. But today we're here to dive into some quick news, the Tap Player of the Week, and then we're going to get to our first ever NBA mock draft here on the channel with a little twist on it compared to our NFL mock drafts. Of course, I'm joined by my co-host, Bakari Steve. How you doing? How you feeling on this Thursday morning?
I feel good. I feel great. Yeah, I'm ready to get into it.
This is your early reminder to support us, as the last two podcasts we've done together have hit 1,000 views in the span of a day. So first off, we want to thank you guys. I mean, the support has been absolutely insane. But without further ado, this is the Anomaly Podcast. Let's get into some news. Here. So we're going to start with Carmelo Anthony. Melo's number 7. There's been reports that the New York Knicks organization they've had conversations about retiring Carmelo Anthony's number 7. Should they feel pressured to retire that number? As in Denver, we know Melo wore number 15, and just 2 years after they left, they drafted a second rounder named Nikola Jokic. He turned out to be the greatest second round pick of all time, probably, and he also wears number 15. Obviously, we know Nikola Jokic is not retired yet. With uncertainty in Denver, with how, it's probably going to be Nikola Jokic over Carmelo Anthony for number 15, do you think the Knicks should feel pressured to maybe be the team to retire a Carmelo Anthony jersey?
I honestly don't think the Knicks would have to feel pressured to retire his jersey, because when you think about it, Carmelo is probably a top 5 Knick ever to put on a uniform, which is crazy to say, given the New York Knicks history. But I think Carmelo, he proved himself as a top 5 Knick to play. Although he didn't have a finals appearance or a ring to go along with it. When you just look at everything he brought to New York, the identity, the pressure to those New York teams, Carmelo did that after their those years of New York kind of just being a very underwhelming team. Carmelo brought fans back to the Garden. He made the Garden electric. He was there through thick and thin. I'm sorry. There were plenty of times he could have went to other teams to probably compete a little bit more, and he stayed committed to New York. I think that the Knicks they should do right by Carmelo and retire this jersey. We've seen players jerseys retired for a lot less. And I know people are like, well, it's New York. They're a prestigious franchise. New York doesn't really have anything to show for their prestige franchise except for a 1970s ring. So I think they should go ahead and retire Carmelo's jersey. If you're me, it's a no-brainer. I don't really think that they should have to think about it too much.
Yeah, I mean, he really embodies the New York attitude, right? I mean, he chose to stay there and fight by himself compared to join LeBron James and Dwayne Wade there in Miami. He chose to go to New York and stay in New York and fight it out on his own and try and compete with a team of role players compared to a team of superstars. So I think he really embodied the city of New York. And to me, I mean, I'm a biased Carmelo Anthony fan, as you guys have seen the last 2 episodes. They should put it in its own spot there in the Garden for me. They need to have it away from everybody else, right? But moving over to James Harden and the Philadelphia 76ers situation, the Sixers, there's been reports they are unlikely to max James Harden this offseason. They're unlikely to give him the money that they want. There's been a report that they said that they're not really motivated to pay him this offseason. So not only did they fire a coach because James Harden did not like him, now you have a star player in Joel Embiid who loved Doc Rivers as the coach, and now both of these guys are gone. Now you got to look for a new coach, a new regime to come in, right? And it's all could have just been avoided if you just let Harden go.
Yeah, I agree with you. Letting Harden walk was probably the easy answer. And I know as a business, as an organization, as an NBA team, especially as a front office, you don't really want to let a player walk for free, especially, a player like, James Harden can be sometimes. He shows flashes of it. He did in the playoffs. But, he's played very underwhelming basketball, especially in the playoffs, and that's where it matters the most. Obviously, so has Joel Embiid too. But I think with Harden, there's just more trouble than it's really worth, especially for a player his age. He's past his prime, and I wouldn't max James Harden either. But like you said, there's no. We all know that the coach is going to be the scapegoat. Doc Rivers is going to unfortunately be the scapegoat in this situation, no matter the outcome, no matter what happened. Doc Rivers, I think the front office had it in their mind that Doc Rivers was going to get fired, and putting the blame on James Harden is a lot easier than owning up to it themselves. And also, you hope that you can make the fall on Joel Embiid a little bit softer. But I don't see the point in signing James Harden to a max by this point in his career. And, unfortunately, they've also messed up their relationship with Joel Embiid in the process.
Yeah, I mean, next year's a key year for the 76ers. I don't see Joel Embiid to be that way, but who knows? Any player now in the age of player empowerment could always walk to the front office and say, get me out of here, right? I demand a trade. But it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me that if you knew you weren't going to re-sign Harden, why get rid of a coach that your star player loves?
Yeah.
A lot of questions there to answer in Philly. But Monty says no, speaking of coaching, as Monty Williams turns down a big money offer from the Detroit Pistons. I want to ask you, what do you think the motive behind his decision was? Was it because of Detroit's situation? Was it the city? Or do you think he just wants to immediately go back to coaching contenders? Because Detroit has young talent, plenty of it. They have a star point guard returning next year, and they have a top 5 pick.
Yeah, I think that the reason Monty says no in this situation is because Monty Williams, he was an assistant for a long time. Obviously, Phoenix was his first head coach or
first head coaching
time head coach job.
Yep.
And he obviously got a taste of that winning, and I feel like by this point in his career, after being one of those coaches that were an assistant coach for a while, then it took a long time for them to get their head coaching job. I think by this point, he doesn't really he's not interested in coaching a rebuilding team. Maybe like a Willis Reed was. Willis Reed is a lot younger. Willis Reed hadn't had any prior coaching experience before, so he was able to take that Pelicans team to new levels, and we see how good of a coach he is when the time.
Willie Green.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
Willis Reed. You're thinking about Melo there.
Yeah. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sitting here thinking about New York, but Willie Green. He's more so of a rebuilding type of coach. Even Nick Nurse is, but Monty Williams, I believe he's a coach that can walk into any door where a team is on that fringe of either being a competitor in the finals or kind of a playoff team, and he could put him over the top with his coaching, just like we saw in Phoenix. I really don't think that there's anything. It's just unfortunately the Pistons aren't caught up to speed to where Monty Williams, I think, wants to re-enter the coaching world.
Yeah, absolutely. It's especially now with these rebuilding teams, you only get really 2 years, and you're out the door if you're not immediately turning this team into a championship contender. If for some reason NBA front offices always feel so pressured to make changes, right? If something's not going exactly how they planned. In a fictional world, it's like these front offices play 2K, right? And they say Cade Cunningham turns into a 99. Monty should have this team as a finals contender in 2 years, when that just might not be the case. So I can't see it, as Monty is 51. He is older, but again, for coaching, you can coach until your 70s. Yeah. But again, not everybody coaches until they're 832 like Greg Popovich. Monty Williams, I understand the decision, but a good thing here is money is not his only motive here at 51 years old. But Jason Tatum and the Celtics, they stayed alive, as we mentioned in the intro. They won Game 4 in, I want to say, convincing fashion there, as the game was never really in question. This is how we expected the Celtics played this entire series, right? But they're now down 3-1. Again, we know no team has ever come back down 0-3 in the Eastern Conference Finals, or I think the Conference Finals ever. Do the C's have a chance? Do the Jays have a chance there? As they have all the talent in the world, but can they put it together for the next 3 games?
As crazy as it sounds, I think that if it was anybody else in the East except for maybe Giannis, I think they have a chance. But Jimmy Butler, obviously this playoffs, he's proved that he's just on a different level from almost every other player, individually wise, in the playoffs this year. And I think Jimmy Butler has his team really rallied and fired up to prove a point. This team isn't going to let an opportunity to go back to the finals or to prove people wrong slip away. It feels like that's been their motivation the entire postseason is, hey, you didn't pick us, we don't care. And that's still their motivation. That's still their mindset. Obviously, the pressure is on the Celtics to win 3 more. I think that the Celtics... obviously we saw last game. It's crazy because Jimmy Butler, we know that the villainish role he likes to take on away games. I don't even think that it's in the bag for the Celtics to win tonight. That's just how surprising he'd have been on the road. Unfortunately, I don't think that there's a chance for the Celtics to come back from this 3-0 deficit. Obviously, it would have been tough, considering any team you're playing against because you're down 3-0. But I think the Celtics just dug themselves into too deep of a hole.
Right, and I mean, what did the Heat? That's only their fourth loss of this postseason. They had one in the first round of the Bucks, 2 to the Knicks, and now 1 to the Celtics. So, I mean, they're 11-4 at this point. This team doesn't lose often, and they're missing one of their best players there in Tyler Hero. So it's amazing how everybody else is stepping up on this Heat team, and I agree with you. I think Miami probably closes it out tonight in the TD Garden. But moving over, the TAP Player of the Week. This is a franchise that has tied the Boston Celtics now in our history of having 2 players now to win TAP Player of the Week in its 9-week history. Go ahead and let us know who is this week's TAP Player of the Week.
The Player of the Week this week is Jamal Murray. I wanted to show Jamal Murray some love. His stats for this past week are 33 points, almost 7 rebounds, 5 assists, and almost 3 steals. 3-0 record during that span. Obviously, we saw the damage he did to the Lakers during that last round, especially that pivotal Game 3 going back to LA. The Nuggets needed to take even more control of the series after going up 2-0 at home. They were able to come right in Game 3, and thanks to Jamal Murray, Jamal Murray's huge game, they were able to do that. Game 4, he struggled a little bit, but he was able to still hit some shots when they mattered the most. Jamal Murray, he's really been on a redemption arc this playoffs. I myself included, along with a lot of people, I didn't know what type of. He was very inconsistent all year long. To say the least. He came back from that torn ACL, and he had some flashes of good games. He had some stretches of getting back into rhythm. But it's safe to say that Jamal Murray is back. This is Jamal Murray we can expect to see moving forward. It's not a fluke, I don't believe. He's a playoff performer. I think he's proved that he's earned that title for his career. Jamal Murray, congratulations. They're going to the finals. And he's been playing really high level basketball.
Yeah, I mean, well, first off, history's been made. He's the first ever undefeated TAP Player of the Week, right, throughout a week span. We've had a lot of 2-0s. We've had a 1-2 here in Steph Curry when he had that crazy against the Kings. But Jamal Murray's the first ever undefeated player here in this week. And I will say for next week, we only have to choose from the Heat and the Celtics. So if the Heat and Celtics didn't go to, if the Heat closed it out in Game 4, we would have had to just choose another TAP Player of the Week or took the week off. But Jamal Murray it's been amazing. As you know, a couple years ago, he was looked at as like damaged goods after having that knee injury, and it's something that I didn't recognize, something that doesn't always get shown on camera. But I saw a Nuggets page, and they're posting that Mike Malone and Jamal Murray have like the special hug that they do after every single playoff game, win or loss. It's especially after the wins, because this Nuggets team doesn't seem to lose much.
Yeah.
They share a hug where it's like, this is the coach that believed in me when most people saw me as damaged goods. They looked at me as washed and I'm past my prime. And Jamal Murray's back to the level of the bubble, if not better, right, as far as just overall play. But that is going to do it for our news and TAP Player of the Week. It's time. We're going to get into our mock draft here on the channel. NBA mock draft. And this one we did a little different. For the NFL mock drafts that we had here on the channel, we split. He took the odds, I took the evens, and then we went through the draft that way where if he took someone, I couldn't take them. It was your idea. We switched it up this time, and now we're going to have our own mock draft, right? So our own mock draft side by side, and we're going to go through and just talk about the overall fits here in the lottery only. That's key to note. But for the NBA mock drafts, that's about, a month or two away, I want to say. But we're going to start here with the number 1 pick, and I mean, the sky is blue. I like food, and people need water to survive, right? This is the most obvious pick in the draft. Victor Wembanyama, a guy who is 7'3" right now, but a guy who is probably going to go to 7'5", 7'6".
Yeah.
Right? A guy who has an 8-foot wingspan already, and he has all the tools that you would want from the next GOAT, right? He's, like I said, the height, the size is all there. He can create his own shot. He can be generational here in the NBA. Most people see him as the best prospect since LeBron James. I believe, the defense needs some work, but he has all the tools to guard quite literally anybody here in the NBA. He just needs to put a little bit more size on, and I guess his slender frame is the only person that we have to worry about, or the only thing that we have to worry about. My pro comp for him is a guy like Kristaps Porzingis. We talked about it about a week or two ago. Yeah. I don't believe he's going to be the LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant level, but I think he's going to be a very serviceable top 30, top 25 player for a long time.
Yeah, I agree with you. when I watch him in France, don't get me wrong, I think he's a really good player. Obviously, when you look at him, you're looking at potential. You're not looking at him right now and saying, "Oh man, this is going to be the best player of the generation." No, you're looking at potential. He has the potential to be, an all-time great. He has the potential to be exactly what everybody is saying to be. But if he doesn't, being Kristaps Porzingis, is okay. Me personally, I think another player we're going to talk about soon. I think Scoot Henderson might end up maybe having a better overall career just because Scoot was able to play in that G League, play against the pros, and he's been doing it for 2 years now. I think it'll be a little bit easier for him too because he's also a guard, and if he goes to the right situation, he can end up having a better career maybe than Wembanyama has. But we'll see. Obviously, Victor, like I said, he has potential. He has all the tools. He has everything you're looking for. He has a skill set we probably never seen. We've never seen for somebody his size. And it'll be nice to see how his being drafted and him developing his style of play kind of translates to the next generation of basketball players, the next generation of young talent that comes into the league, because we're seeing skill sets we've never seen before on a yearly basis in the draft. And no doubt, Wembanyama, he is
the number one pick.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about it last time too with how the Zion and Ja draft, how this is very similar to that, where the best player might be the number 2 pick, but if you're that number 1 team, you don't have a choice. You have to take that unicorn. In this case, it is Victor. And Scoot may be the best player, but the Spurs, everybody's getting fired, including Greg Popovich, if they don't take Victor Wembanyama here. So they're pigeonholing themselves. They're betting on a generational guy.
Yeah.
But the best player might end up being the number 2 pick, which we're going to transition to now. The biggest question of the draft, I want to say as of now, is who or what do the Charlotte Hornets do it to? Do they go for fit, or do they go for just overall talent? And in this case, I think we both have them taking Scoot Henderson.
Yeah.
So we're going for talent over fit, and I believe they're just in a bad position. They need to take the best player available, and even though their star player right now is LaMelo Ball, Scoot Henderson can play the 2. He's a combo guard in my mind, and I believe this pairing progressed the rebuild. I'll put it that way. Can progress the rebuild a lot faster than at least what they're going at right now. I guess, do you have them going with talent or fit? With the fit in this case would be Brandon Miller.
I have talent. I have Scoot as well. And I think the reason I take talent in Scoot is because, like I said, this could be one of those, like you said, this could be one of those situations where Scoot does end up being the best player in this draft. He's number 2. Obviously, any other draft, these first 3 picks are going first, no doubt. Scoot Henderson is no exception to that. I think when you have a player of this talent level, a player who has been playing in the G League for 2 years since he was 17, a player who has molded his body into that of a strong NBA guard, he's worked on his game day in and day out in that G League. I think you can make him fit with LaMelo Ball. LaMelo Ball is 6'7", 6'8" point guard. Scoot is 6'2", 6'3". I think that you actually have a great balance in the backcourt because Scoot is also a good defender. He's a hustle. He's like Russ. He's gonna hustle. He's gonna give you everything he's got. For 48 minutes straight. And when you have that happening, you have 2 playmakers in the backcourt. One each can go get their own bucket. I think that this would be you're setting yourself up to have a top 3 potential backcourt in the league. Both in their primes, both progress as they should. I think that this would be a really good pick for Charlotte. Obviously, the alternative was Brandon Miller, but I think that when you have Scoot, you can make him fit on your team, especially when you don't have a lot of other concrete set in stone plans for your franchise right now.
Yeah, who knows? They might bring back like a Miles Bridges. He could play that 3, or they have some promising bigs last year. They just need LaMelo to be healthy, and if LaMelo's not healthy, I think Scoot can still carry that team to somewhat relevancy.
Yeah,
at least a play-in. I think we can both agree that a good comp for him would be like a young Russell Westbrook, which I know you would love to see. I know you're going to be a big Scoot fan, apparently, especially if he's compared to Russ. But Scoot is a guy that I think is in a better situation than Russ was early on as far as his skill set, as I believe he's probably not as explosive as Russ, but the jump shot's in a better spot. He does have his inconsistencies, but I believe his jumper's way better now than probably prime Russ's was.
He's stronger too.
Yeah, he looks the part.
Yeah.
he's one of those freaks of nature here in the class. Moving over to number 3, and again, you mentioned it. These top 3 guys are going first in any class except this one. This one could be a generational class, and In this case, Brandon Miller falls to number 3 here, and he's going to the Portland Trailblazers, a team that needs wings. They haven't really had a consistent wing play since the Al-Farouq Aminu and Mo Harkless days. But this team has Damian Lillard. They've committed to Dame, and they've said that if they draft this number 3 pick, it's going to be around Dame, right? They're going to be building a championship contender, quote unquote. Whatever that means there in Portland, right? And it starts here with Brandon Miller. And I believe he's the best two-way player in the class, up there with Scoot Henderson. He's 6'9", he can shoot the 3 right now, the NBA 3, and I believe he can create his own shot. He's not as explosive as you would like in one of these 6'9" wings, but I believe on the court he has everything you need. And another one of your favorite players, he reminds me a lot of Paul George.
Yeah.
But I guess the only other worry for me is off the court. He's had his issues off the court. Can he get it settled? That's it for me, though.
Yeah, and I think obviously, like you said, I'm a big Brandon Miller fan. I was, and he started off this year having some crazy games for Alabama, really put himself on the map, and he made it a conversation of who do you draft second, Scoot or Brandon Miller, and that's been going on ever since he's had those stretch of games at the beginning of the year. Obviously, a disappointing tournament outcome, but he's still. Brandon Miller, he has the skill set that any team would want. And, unfortunately, Portland is right here. We don't know if Portland's going to keep this pick or if they're going to draft Brandon Miller, trade Dame, or whatever the case may be. Brandon Miller, he goes right here. This could end up being like that, like the Cade, Jalen Green, and Evan Mobley draft, where Evan Mobley just got gift wrapped to us at 3. Whatever team gets Brandon Miller, they're going to love him. Like you said, he's probably one of the best two-way players in this draft right now. He can shoot. I think that you can beef up his size. You can get him on a strength program coming into the league. He has the handles. He has the shot creating ability. Maybe you want to see a little bit more playmaking ability as far as dishing the ball off. But I think as far as off the court issues go, I think that for the most part we were able to see that not take effect in his game. Ever since it started happening. Hopefully the money and everything doesn't get to him on the next level, and obviously with what's going on now. Doesn't mix with that. But I believe that all things considered, everything that everybody said before everything happened was how good of a kid he was in the first place. I think that obviously when things like his situation happen, he's going to be making a more of an effort to show the community of whatever team he gets drafted to that, hey, I'm not what you heard about in the papers and in the media, whatever. I'm this outstanding guy. So Brandon Miller on and off the court, I expect to see some big things.
Moving over to number 4, the Houston Rockets. They're in a weird situation, to be completely honest with you. Right now, they're in conversations with getting James Harden, a guy who was there for years and years, and now he's older, past his prime, and right now they might be bringing him in to pair along Jalen Green. But let's say they don't, right? And in this case, I'm hoping they don't, because for me, I'm having them take one of the Thompson twins. In my opinion, the better Thompson twin in Amen Thompson. It's Amen, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I would hope so. Not amen, but Amen Thompson here out of the Overtime Elite. He's an elite shot creator. He's 6'7" at the point guard position. And to me, just watching his highlights, he's a human highlight film offensively. I will say that there has been questions on his lack of high level experience against the talents, right? As the Overtime Elite probably doesn't have the talent that overall that the G League has or the college level has, right? So there is worries about his high level experience, but he has the size, he has all the tools offensively, and I believe him next to Jalen Green is going to create a very dangerous scoring duo there, maybe like a Dame and CJ there. But for me, he's like a Ja Morant, even though he's like 4 inches taller. So I think he's like a taller Ja.
Yeah, I have Amen Thompson going to the Rockets as well. The good thing about Amen is that even if the Rockets do get James Harden, he can slide into that 3 position. You can put him at the 2, move Jalen Green to the 3, and let him not worry about anything other than getting buckets, which is what he already worries about because he doesn't pass the ball. But that's a different conversation for a different day. I think that if you do get James Harden, you have a backcourt of James Harden and Amen Thompson to facilitate the ball, and you have James Harden. He's not as explosive anymore, but you have Amen who can take that. He can penetrate to the hoop. You can develop his shot. He can become a dynamic shot creator and shot maker, as well as his playmaking ability to help other guys like Jabari Smith Jr. and Jalen Green. You slide Kevin Porter Jr. down to that 6-man role. You're starting something.
Jalen Green would come off the bench then too if they had Harden and Amen. So.
Exactly. You could start something. You could start putting your franchise in a direction, and I think that's what this pick should do for Houston. I think Houston should draft for direction now. It's time to stop just taking the best available talent. Let's get direction. Let's see where we want to put our franchise. Let's see how we want to build around our franchise. And I think this would be the perfect pick because of his versatility to play either that guard position, point or shooting guard, or he can slide to the 3. He is 6'7". You can put him a little bit more muscle on him if you want him to stay at the 3. But, he has versatility to play either one of those, and he has high-level athleticism and shot-creating ability already.
Yeah, I believe they already have some promising young bigs there and young wings. They just need a guy to put them in the right spots, and I think Amin can do that. But moving over to 5, it might be, I'm not going to say my favorite player in the class, but one of my favorite players is Jarris Walker. A guy who he's got great size, he's got great strength, length, and from what I've heard, he's a great passer here at the college level. He's coming off of that Houston team that is known for defense year in and year out, so he's going to bring that high energy as well, tons of versatility offensively and defensively, and not to mention there's been questions about his offense, but I think he just needs time. And for me, a pro comp for him would be like a Jeremy Grant, a guy who came into the league, had all the tools. He just needed time to develop those tools, right? And I think Jarris Walker can be just like that coming into the league. And if you put him next to Jalen Duren, have Cade Cunningham, have Jaden Ivey, I think you're going to have two bigs that remind you of the Ben Wallace, Rasheed Wallace type days where both of those guys are very physical and they want it. And then you have the two guards that could put you over. I think this is going to remind Pistons fans a lot of their old early 2000 days. It's a great pick here for Detroit.
Yeah, and for Detroit, I actually have the other Thompson going here, Asar Thompson. I thought about this and I was like, Jarris Walker, he makes a lot of sense for this Pistons team. But I was like, you know what have the Pistons drafted these last couple of years? What do they have? They obviously have Cade Cunningham. They took Jaden Ivey last year, Jalen Duren. And I was like, listen, I think that they should probably prioritize a wing over getting, a 3 or a 4 or a 5. And Asar, the good thing about him is he's already a secondary playmaker, shot creator, scoring threat. I think that he can play either guard position just like his brother. He can play either guard position, but he can play naturally at that wing position. He's a good defender too. That's what gives him a lot of that's what made me pick him too. He can play the 3, he can score, he can play make. He can't shoot as good as you would probably want him to shoot now, but he can work on that. If he can develop that, he can become a very good 3-and-D wing for a young and promising Pistons team. Like I said, he already has the handles to playmaking. His defense is off the charts already. And when you look at him, he's 6'7", 207 pounds coming out of the draft. I think the Pistons will benefit from taking. This is a mix of talent and fit. You get some much needed talent to help with the roster that you already have showing promise with, and you get fit to get a wing. I mean, think about it. You have Cade Cunningham and Asar Thompson, who are both over 6'7". Obviously Jaden Ivey 6'3". But the explosiveness from those 3 guys alone is enough to put pressure on any team's, first 3, starting. So I believe that this will be a good pick for the Pistons because of the fit and talent mix. Obviously the Pistons are in a position where they can't say no to anybody right now. So win-win as I see for the Pistons.
Right. Moving over to number 6 for the Magic. This is where I do have Asar Thompson going. I figured just he can slide in there right next to Jalen Suggs or whoever they want to put at the point guard position because you have the talented wings. You have Franz Wagner. You have Paolo Banchero. They have some other talented bigs there. I think you're in a situation where if you have that guard that can really get those guys in the right positions and just overall take the team over the top, Asar can do that. Like you said. You touched on a lot of great points. He's an elite two-way player, and I believe that's only going to help this young Magic team. And that's why he goes number 6 to me for the Orlando Magic. Nothing really that you didn't say that I have to say.
Yeah, I have Jarris Walker going to the to the Magic. Obviously, you touched on a lot of points with the Pistons. I think that this pick right here, it benefits the Magic because they have 2 lottery picks. So you don't necessarily have to overreach or reach for whoever you want. You can let them fall, or you can let your cards play out, and I think that's what they do right here. They get Jarris Walker. I think this is more so going to be when the Atlanta Hawks drafted Onyeka Okongwu. They already had Clint Capella and John Collins. Onyeka comes off and gives them that energy off the bench. Sometimes he even starts and gives them that energy.
I think he can start next to Paolo.
Exactly. I think that they have Wendell Carter Jr. If they bring him back, we'll see. But I think you'd have a deadly wing and big lineup of Drace Walker, Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero. You already have Jalen Suggs and Cole Anthony, Markel Fultz, guys like that. We obviously saw the improvement of the second half of the season that the Magic showed. Puelo, he was really that boost of energy that the Magic needed this past season. Obviously, he's the Rookie of the Year. Drace Walker, I think he helps them tremendously. But like you said, you can't go wrong between either Drace or Asar Thompson in this position if you're the Magic.
Moving over to number 7, where we have the Indiana Pacers. For me, I have them taking Cam Whitmore, a guy who reminds me a lot of Miles Bridges, who we were jokingly mentioning earlier, but a guy who's super athletic, great strength. He's a crafty scorer, but he is very inconsistent. I was looking at his game log, and he's giving you 22, then he's giving you 6, then he's giving you 28. Then it's going to be 12, so it's a guy who you want to see consistency more from his scoring output, but he generates tons of steals, tons of disruption on the defensive side of the ball, more so than Miles Bridges, I would say. But this is a guy that he needs to improve a little bit on the outside, a little bit with his shooting, and he's not the most effective shot creator. But good thing for him, he's going to a team like the Pacers, who have one of the best passers and playmakers in the NBA in Tyrese Halliburton, a guy who was leading the league in assists before he got injured. I don't know if he finished the year as the lead assist man, but
I think James Harden did.
James Harden may have passed him, but for the majority of the year, it was Tyrese Halliburton. And Cam Whitmore, for his flaws, I think he goes there and he pairs perfectly. And Tyrese is, they need some guard play, and they're getting that here in Cam Whitmore.
Yeah, and that's the exact reason I have Cam Whitmore going to the Pacers as well. You just touched on basically all the points that I was going to touch on. Whatever flaws he has as far as his playmaking and shot creating goes, he's playing with Tyrese Halliburton, one of the league's best assists man. Tyrese can really set you up and get you into place. And when you're on a young team like this, you can develop. You can work on your skill set. He's 6'7", 230 pounds. The sky's the limit for him. He showed promise as a shot creator and a shot maker this past season. Like you said, he was just very inconsistent. But I believe that the Pacers can help him out with that.
Moving over to number 9, where the Jazz, a team that, first off, we got to say, or not the Jazz, excuse me, we'll get there. But we're going to start here with Washington. That's how irrelevant they seem to be sometimes. You seem to forget about a team like Washington. But they do have the number 8 pick. And I'm going to give them Anthony Black. A guy who has all the size in the world that you would want at the point guard position. 6'7". He can pair perfectly there with Bradley Beal. He's going to a team that had Ish Smith starting a lot of point guard last season. It's a team that has missed an elite point guard since John Wall left, and I believe Anthony Black has the potential to be just that. He's a great passer. He's a floor general, which for a team that has guys like Kristaps Porzingis, Kyle Kuzma, and Bradley Beal, a guy like Anthony Black can put them all in the position to score and effectively at a high rate. I will say that he needs to improve his outside shot, but so does 90% of these college athletes. So his two-way potential's there. Great playmaker. For me, he reminds me a lot of Lonzo Ball.
Yeah, and I have Anthony Black going to the Wizards as well. Basically for all the reasons you just said. The Wizards, they're lacking a point guard desperately. They need one. They get one to put next to Brad and all those guys you just mentioned. I think this would be a great opportunity for the Wizards to like you said, try and see if they can get that next great point guard for them. Obviously, like you said, he can work on his shooting, he can work on a few things, but coming into a situation where he probably no doubt start for the Washington Wizards. He'll have the keys to the offense handed to him to play make and to set up his teammates. And he's walking into a situation where he has talent around him too. Obviously he has a lot more talent than most of these other lottery teams coming in with Brad, Kristaps Porzingis, Kyle Kuzma, like you mentioned. Even guys like Daniel Gafford coming off the bench. So this is a win-win for Anthony Black and the Washington Wizards.
Moving over to number 9, which now we'll get to the Utah Jazz. My apologies there for the Washington Wizards fans. But for me, I have them taking Grady Dick, a guy who is 6'8" at the 2-guard position. He's the best 3-point shooter in the class, most likely. And I believe he's best, he's best playing off the pick and roll action. So basically, if the point guard's coming off the pick and roll, I believe that's best if he's there and available to catch and shoot and put up a lot of numbers behind the arc because he's not a creator. That's something we have to worry about. But for me, he reminds me just a lot of a Kevin Huerter, but this year's Kevin Huerter, a guy who was able to put up 15, 18 points a night. Surprisingly, right? It's like a guy like, he put up that many points. but it's just strictly off catch and shoot threes. And I believe Grady Dick, he can do that, but he has a little bit more shot creating ability than a guy like Kevin Huerter.
Yeah, and for the Utah Jazz, I have them taking Keontae George. This is somebody who he was a little bit inconsistent at Baylor, but if you check this out, he was their leading scorer this past season, and Baylor was, as most people know, if you watch college basketball, they had a team full of upperclassmen. Keontae George was able to step in and lead this team in scoring while being a little bit inconsistent, having a little bit of that freshman roughness. He also showed an ability to get others involved, and that's what you want to see. He has, he's 6'4", 193, and he's stepped up on the defensive side of the ball, especially late last year at Baylor. I think he steps into this Utah Jazz team, and he gives them much needed backcourt attackness to pair with Larry Markkinen. Obviously, he's not as good as a shooter as Grady Dick, but I think that he can do a lot of the things that Grady Dick can't as far as playmaking and off the dribble type of attack. That would be what I think the Jazz are missing since they obviously traded Donovan Mitchell. They have guys like Jordan Clarkson, but I think Keontae George if you're able to develop him in a way, he can be a very good pick and roll mate with Larry Markkinen just because of his ability to attack the paint and play make for others.
Moving over to number 10, where the Dallas Mavericks here. They're rumored to trade this pick, but in this mock draft, again, if we haven't made it clear enough, we do not have trades here in this mock draft. We will next time, which is going to be a couple weeks away, but we wanted to get this first one out there early and just overall look at the class. And for me, a guy that stood out was Taylor Hendricks, a guy who plays for UCF, a guy who can play forward or the big position. He was very athletic. He's 6'8" with a 7'2" wingspan, I believe. Something crazy like that. I believe he can fit in any system. And to me, he reminds me a lot of like a Jaden McDaniels from this year, where the shot's not all the way there, but everything else he brings. Defense, high intensity to length, where he can guard, a lot of positions with a lot of defensive versatility there. And he's going to a team that desperately needs it more than any team with the Dallas Mavericks, is they don't believe in a big man. They're the new Houston Rockets, and I believe Taylor Hendricks immediately comes in, and he's going to be the Christian Wood they never had.
Yeah, and Taylor Hendricks, he is tailor made for the modern NBA, because he can, if you could develop his shooting ability, he can become that modern 3-and-D wing that the Dallas Mavericks are missing, obviously, since they traded Dorian Finney-Smith. Like you said, they don't believe in big men. If you can develop Taylor Hendricks into being that 3-and-D or that 4-and-D, that stretch five, whatever you want to call it, player for you, he can dramatically help out Luka. And if they are able to keep Kyrie Irving, he can help them out by stretching the floor, playing defense, using that wingspan to good ability. Great pick for Dallas here if they keep it.
Right. Moving over to number 11, which it is the second pick of the Orlando Magic. For me, my first pick that I had them taking was, I believe, Ausar Thompson. So to me, I believe this team has the wings. We talked about it already. Sure, could they use a big here? Yes, but I think they just continue to build that backcourt. I believe they set their backcourt for the future because, like you were saying, they need to choose a direction here. And for me, they get Ausar Thompson. And then they get a two-guard to pair well with Ausar Thompson, and they mesh perfectly as they get Jordan Hawkins here, a guy who played for UConn last year, the team that won March Madness, and he was the guy on that team. He's a great shooter. He's a great team defender. We do have to worry about his on-ball defense, but if you're going to a team like the Magic, they're all super young. They're all gonna give the effort needed to be an okay defensive team. I believe being the guy on a championship team, bringing his shooting ability, that would pair perfectly next side to Ausar. And then you got a lineup of Ausar Thompson, Jordan Hawkins, Franz Wagner. You can even throw in Paolo Banchero and whatever big they want to throw in there. So I believe it's just an overall good fit, provides that team with a lot of shooting, as Paolo at times didn't have that last year.
Yeah, and for that reason, I have the Magic taking Grady Dick. I had them taking, I think with the 5th or 6th pick, I had them taking Jarace Walker.
Yes.
Obviously I explained why that pick works well. I think this pick is also the opposite of that pick when it comes to fit, because Grady Dick, and unlike Jarace Walker, he can stretch that floor, like you said, for him when you talked about him with Utah. He's going to be most effective coming off of that pick and roll action where he is the catch and shoot player. And on this Orlando Magic team where they have playmakers like Markelle Fultz, Jalen Suggs, Franz Wagner, Paolo, he showed his ability to pass the ball at times. You have Wendell Carter Jr. You have a team. Cole Anthony. I'm sorry, I don't know how I forgot about that.
Right.
R.J. Hampton. Depending on what you do with him. This Magic team, they're setting themselves up. I think they're going to be a legitimate play-in threat this upcoming season because of the talent that they have on this roster already, and because of the growth that they showed at the second half of that season. Adding guys like Jarace Walker and Grady Dick to come in. If Grady Dick can just come in and do his job that he did from college, he will already be helping his team out significantly because he gives them that deadly catch-and-shoot three-point shooter. And when you do that, you unlock the offense for guys like Paolo Banchero and Jalen Suggs and Cole Anthony and Franz Wagner, and even Wendell Carter Jr., who's shown his ability to stretch the floor a little bit more in these past few seasons.
Yeah, I believe it's that the way that you've drafted for the Orlando Magic is perfect for them. They get their big that 5 for that team, and they also get a 2-guard to pair along Jalen Suggs to really complete that lineup. I just, due to how my draft turned out, they had to go with their secondary options. But I would definitely, as a Magic fan, I would prefer how you've drafted compared to mine. It's just the draft board didn't fall their way here in my drafts. I guess it's the best case and worst case scenario here for the Orlando Magic. But moving over to number 12, we have the Oklahoma City Thunder. I have them taking Cason Wallace, a guy where he is a point guard. So you're like, why are you taking a point guard for a team that has Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? For me, he's going to bring that defensive aggressiveness. To me, he reminds me a lot of a young Drew Holiday. He's 6'4", brings that defensive, he brings that defensive size, anticipation, grittiness, and at the same time, he shoots 43% on pull-up jumpers last year. So he's going to bring that two-way ability, and he's going to bring a lot of defense that Shai doesn't always have.
Yeah, and for the Oklahoma City Thunder, I have them taking Nick Smith Jr., guard out of Arkansas. This is somebody who, coming into college, he was supposed to be the guy on Arkansas. He was supposed to be, a really good freshman. He was probably going to, I think at this point last year, he was a little bit higher up in this mock draft, in the way too early mock drafts. But this past season, he was out for 2 months due to injury. And when that happens, you can never really catch a quick rhythm. But he was able to show some flashes at Arkansas. He can play on ball or off ball. He's 6'5". He has all the tools to score. He can score on 3 levels. He's a really good shot maker, shot creator. And I think that works perfectly with guys like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Josh Giddey. It gives you another scorer in there. So when Shai has to come out of the game, you can rely on Nick Smith Jr. just as much as you can rely on Josh Giddey. And I think this, you lack a little bit of defense in that backcourt just because you don't get a guy like Carson Wallace. But I think that Nick Smith Jr., his scoring output should be able to negate that defensive output.
Right, and I think that's the only reason I went with Cason Wallace is he's not a ball-demanding player, so you can continue to let Josh Giddey develop, let Shai develop and do his own thing, while Cason Wallace is just going to shoot threes and play defense.
Yeah.
But I could definitely see the Nick Smith pick here as, for me, he's going at pick 13 here to the excuse me, I can't even say the name, but the Toronto Raptors, right? Drake's team. But they get Nick Smith Jr. here, a team that is going to probably lose Fred VanVleet here in the offseason. So they're going to have a hole at point guard. They might even lose Gary Trent here this offseason. That needs to be a priority for them to bring back Gary Trent. But
Cavs, you know what to do.
Right? But we won't. We'll sign Mason Plumlee. Don't worry. But the Raptors, they get Nick Smith, a guy who you talked about. He's a great scorer. For me, he reminds me, let me know what you think about this. He reminds me a lot of like a Nets D'Lo, a guy who plays at his own speed. He's not the most explosive guy, but he can, he gets to his spots and he's gonna score. And I realized watching quickly, he loves to use the floater.
Yeah,
and
I can see it.
Yeah, it definitely reminded me a lot of Nets D'Lo. I mean, you have to worry a little bit about the defense, but even if he goes to a team like the Raptors, that might be the perfect scenario for him to just play his game and score the ball at his own pace because you have all the defense in the world and all the sides in the world around him. And you could probably roll out a lineup of Nick Smith. If let's say they lose Gary Trent and Fred VanVleet, you can have OG, Pascal Siakam, and other great defenders there in that starting lineup. Maybe even Chris Boucher. Just tons of size and length around him. This is a perfect spot for him. Yeah,
and this my draft. I'm looking at it. It's a lot of great scenarios for some of these teams, just because of the way everybody on my draft board is going. But the Toronto Raptors, they actually get Cason Wallace. Like you said, Freddie V might leave. He's probably on his way out.
You're creating the prison ball team. This team is nobody's scoring on this Raptors team.
Yeah, this is. We're going to hold you to 25 points, but we might not be able to get to 15 ourselves. Cason Wallace, he goes to this Raptors team who's going to be lacking that point guard. But I mean, here's the best positive outlook on this scenario. He can't possibly shoot as bad as Fred VanVleet shot this past season. Even as a rookie, I'm sure his shot IQ and shot selection will be better. And who knows? Maybe Toronto does go out there and make a splash in free agency. We'll have to see what happens. Obviously, Scotty Barnes had that bad season off of his sophomore slump, but I don't think that's a sophomore slump. That's another conversation. Shouldn't have got Rookie of the Year. Salty Cavs fan here. But Casey Wallace, he steps into the situation where he's taking the keys from Fred VanVleet, and he's making it his own franchise. It just so happens that defense is his specialty.
Yeah, to close out my lottery draft here, we both have, we don't both have the same guy, but we both have guards going to this New Orleans Pelicans team, a team that had CJ McCollum running a lot of the lead guard last year, which he can do. And they were an okay team, but he's more natural at the two guard. I believe they bring in a guy like Keontae George, who, don't get me wrong, he's not a lead guard. He's not a guy. So it's kind of adding fuel to the fire, right? But I believe he can come in and can take that pressure off of CJ McCollum, as Keontae can probably run the one. He reminds me a lot of a guy like Bradley Beal, a guy that he can get that bucket for you. The team's struggling offensively. Let's say Brandon Ingram doesn't have it going, or Zion's on the bench like he always is. You have a guy like Keontae George that at times can carry the offense, and I believe he also brings that defensive intensity that would match. It would match perfectly with a guy like Herb Jones and Jose Alvarado. I can just imagine that 1 through 3 there in New Orleans. And it's just, honestly, it's just his finishing around the rim. But as an undersized guard, you would expect that. But still, Bradley Beal for me makes perfect sense. He's gonna get to his spots, and he's gonna put up as many points as he can.
Yeah, and I have Jordan Hawkins going to this Pelicans team, like you mentioned to him earlier. You had him going to the Magic. You touched on him. He was that guy at UConn, obviously. We know what they just did in the tournament. This is somebody who I think will drastically help, whether it's CJ running that lead guard, or he can we can see how he gives the keys running that lead guard. I think that you'll have two dynamic threats in the backcourt, and I think when you have that threat, it opens the lane up for guys like Brandon Ingram and Zion. Obviously, if Zion can stay on the court and stay healthy, even Valanciunas, I think that just having another guard out there who can score is going to help this Pelicans team. Obviously, Herb Jones isn't the first threat you think of when you hear scoring the ball. So I think Jordan Hawkins, whether he's coming off the bench as a sixth man as a rookie, or he's stepped into that starting lineup to play that next guard with CJ, depending on their free agency moves, I think that this will be a good pick for the Pelicans. Just because it looks like most of these teams had their dream scenario in this draft on my board for whatever reason.
Right, and obviously, dream scenario, if that works out for everybody, then that just makes the most sense, and it most likely won't happen.
Exactly.
We'll see some crazy shakeups here in the draft. But, honestly, the craziest thing for me going through this mock draft was that out of the first 14 picks, the lottery, 10 of them were guards. 10 of them were like guards or just like wings. And then you only had like 4 bigs really go in this top. And is Wemby a big to you? He better be at 7'5". But
yeah.
It's just crazy that 10 guards went in this lottery, and I guess that really shows the evolution of the game, how important the guard is now.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of these guys too, these aren't traditional 6'2", 6'3" guards. I think
a lot of them have size.
Yeah, a lot of them are like 6'7", 6'8". These are guards / forwards. These are guys who probably been playing forward the entire life and then stepped into a situation in college where they had to take over a lead guard role or a guard role and just excelled at it. Obviously, we know the versatility that's in the NBA right now. We're seeing a lot of versatility. Guys can play 1 through 5, 1 through 4, and we're seeing that. You're seeing that really happen in this mock draft. Obviously, there are a lot of these guys who they might step into the team as their 1, or they can go slide at the 3. And a lot of these forwards too. A lot of these forwards are forwards who can they can hop in and play center if you need them to. But I'm sure next year, watch, there'll probably be an influx of big men coming into it.
The game is kind of gone back to having the bigs back on the court, as there was a 2-year stretch there where PJ Tucker was once running a big man position. But that's going to do it for today's show. Today's topics are on your screen now. We talked about Melo and the Knicks. Maybe his jersey gets retired there. We talked about how Harden has screwed Philly, quite literally on the court and off the court. Monty Williams, he turned down Detroit as what is the motive behind that, Monty? That's something we're going to figure out here pretty soon. The Celtics, they stayed alive. Game 5 is tonight. Quick predictions. I guess you touched on it earlier, but Heater Celtics tonight.
I'm going to go to Celtics just because they're home, but that's
Continue to make things interesting.
Yeah.
But I think
Vincent also wasn't playing. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
so to be completely honest, Celtics to me, I think they also come out and win this game and continue to make it interesting. But for Tap Player of the Week next week, you only have one game to choose from. It's tonight. So I guess if the Heat close it out, you only have one game to choose from. So whoever goes crazy tonight, this is the perfect opportunity. Kyle, never mind. That's not the place for it. But Kyle Lowry, please come on, have a 30-point triple-double so I can have a great time next week talking about you. But and then we also, of course, had our first ever mock draft here on the channel for the NBA side of things. We have 2 more to come here in this draft process, one on draft day and one about a week before. Any last thoughts before we get out of here? We're heading to the weekend, and I'm ready for lunch.
Yeah, I feel you. I'm ready for breakfast. I do like that. I feel like the mock draft, it was fun. We were able to introduce you guys to a lot of the prospects and educate ourselves on a lot of these guys who are going to be in the league next year. And I can't help but be excited for a lot of these lottery teams to see what type of situation that they're able to create for themselves out of this draft.
Yeah, let us know what you guys think down below. Do you want us to go back to the old style where we had more so of we switched every pick, or would you like us to do it this way? I think this way, I had my doubts about it when you first said that we should split it up, but I think it honestly might be better this way, especially with the graphics. Also, let us know, do you prefer the old graphics where we had the single slots, or do you prefer this, where it's kind of all together? And I don't know, I think this one looks little bit more professional. But regardless, I will say before we get out of here to continue to support us, share the podcast, drop a like, subscribe. Like we mentioned in the intro, we've had 2 podcasts hit 1,000 views in a day, right, on these last 2. So, the support's been amazing. We're on the road to 300 subscribers. Help us get us there if you have a chance. But that's going to do it. We'll see you guys next Tuesday. Be on the lookout for Wednesday and Friday shows, as fantasy football content is always there. But until the weekend, until next time, we're probably going to be looking at the NBA Finals matchup. We'll see you guys then. We're out.